Hey everybody, what's up? The first couple of videos I have today are just me using the dried fingers here in Dragonkin Mausoleum. And this first guy here that invades me had actually invaded me previously, and I'd given him a pretty good beating. This time it goes a little bit differently. He hits me with this wombo combo from hell that I've never seen. Obviously, the R2 was not a true combo, it was a roll catch, but I just thought it was really nicely done. Um, so I ended up fighting this guy 3 or 4 times, and I won all of the fights except for this one. Each of the times he starts poking me, I think that I'm out of range and he won't track well enough to hit me. Like right here, I don't think he's going to hit me, but he still does, which is kind of frustrating. But I had a lot of good matches here in Dragonkin Mausoleum. Normally, when I throw on the dried fingers, it takes me quite a bit to get invaded. I can end up waiting 5 or 10 minutes between invasions, but these were coming pretty quick, one after another. So I see this jackass is gonna try to buff and then try to hit me. So I'm totally on his shit as soon as he does that. I felt pretty good about that. So the same guy invades me just moments later. In fact, I think it was immediately after he re-invaded me. And this time he's got the parry shield out, so I know exactly what's coming. And I really, really wish I would have gotten that backstab on him. And he tries to parry my R2. And this guy I fought a few times, not as part of the same session, but off and on here in Dragonkin Mausoleum, and he's pretty good. And he and I usually end up having a pretty good fight. And there's one part of this fight in particular that I'm going to slow down because I want to break it down a little bit and talk about it. So I'm always a little nervous playing people that have shields when I'm using this weapon, because they can block, and then you're left with a decision. Do you swing again, running the risk of getting parried? And they can swing their straight sword, and sometimes I think they can swing it faster than you can and interrupt your hyper armor. So here I panic roll. He catches it. He comes in expecting that exact same panic roll. It's something I do all the time, but I surprise him. Now I'm expecting him to panic roll out, so I had already started my running attack, but he holds his ground. And it was really interesting. In a span of 8 seconds, I surprised him and he surprised me. It made for a fun fight. And this was funny. This helped explain why there was so much activity here in Dragonkin Mausoleum. I see that I get invaded by a guy with a username, Yuka's Legion, but I'm not sure if it's actually him or not. And I'm thinking, well, it would be pretty weird for somebody else to name their PSN ID, because I'm showing PSN IDs, not their actual character names. I'm not terribly familiar with this guy. I know of him, and I've seen some of his fights with like Oro and whatnot. But another guy with Llewellyn, which makes me edgy. And of course, he's got the Dragon Slayer axe with lightning blade on it, which can be really freaking dangerous. I suspect that charged R2 is going to be a parry bait. I swung twice there because I hadn't shown him that at all. And actually, as soon as this fight was over, I went looking to see if he had a Twitch stream, and he did, and he was here, so it was him. So that was kind of like an interesting fight for me. I got to fight another YouTuber. So some of the spawns here are pretty questionable. It took me a while to get used to the fact that even if you get spawned in down here, it doesn't mean that they're down here. They could very well be up at the top of the map over by the Angels or making their way over to the Twin Princes fight. And so I've learned if I don't see them immediately to come check the state of the elevators because that generally gives you a pretty good clue where they are. But I wanted to talk about something. Saint Riot left a comment on one of his videos the other day, or maybe actually, I apologize, he was talking about it during his video, and it turned into a discussion in the comments. And essentially, his position was that he doesn't like to use the Hornet Ring. That he, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, so if you're interested, go read the comment. And I don't remember it exactly, but sort of summarizing, I think he said that it was a little cheap. Again, he may not have used the word cheap, but he didn't care for it, we'll say that. And I left a comment in response, essentially observing that, in my view, it was kind of the great equalizer. It was one of the few tools that invaders have at their disposal to help try to even the score. But I started thinking about it some more, and it's a really tough problem. I think he has a point, and I've got a couple fights here that'll kind of show I think some situations where it is a little overpowered. Now, in this particular fight here, both of those guys would have gone down to my riposte, regardless of whether I'd had the Hornet Ring equipped or not. But I have some fights coming up in a little while that definitely turned on the use of the Hornet Ring. So fighting against a single host, I know Saint doesn't like to use the Hornet Ring. So if I were sort of following his MO, I wouldn't be using the Hornet Ring here either. And that guy got me with the dagger, and then he got me with the sword. Here I get the parry. He's completely outplayed me up until this point. I don't play well against this weapon, and I kill him. And that to me is probably a pretty good example in favor of the argument that Saint was making. I mean, that fight, frankly, it was cheap. I mean, I killed that guy. The parry was good. I definitely earned the right to do some serious damage to him, but it effectively ended the fight, and it just kind of left a bad taste in my mouth and really got me thinking more about what Saint had been saying. So I'm still not sure what I want to do. I think I'll keep it on. I just don't know what I want to do yet. So I invade this guy, and he seems a little uncertain of himself. And so I've been thinking about the Hornet Ring. I've been thinking about trying to go easier on solo hosts. So I kind of decide, look, I'm going to let this guy. I'm going to try to help him learn. He obviously doesn't have much vigor. He doesn't really seem to know what he's doing. So I hit him once, and then I back off and let him heal. So I'm not charging him too much. I see now he's going for the dragon form, so I just kind of let him do it. Hit him again for like 70% of his health. Back off and let him heal. Like, I'm hoping to kind of turn this into a learning opportunity. I don't take the riposte. So now I'm feeling pretty good about myself, like, yeah, I'm helping a new player learn how to play the game. But now I see that he's summoning a Phantom. So now I kind of feel like it's the opposite side of the argument, right? That if you try to cut people a break, if you don't come at them as hard as you absolutely can and with as much damage as you possibly can, that's what'll happen. Blues will come in. They'll summon other Phantoms. Maybe they have the Hornet Ring on and they'll one-shot you. So I'm really not sure how to feel about it right now. So I end up invading the same guy again later, but this time he's got like an entire party with him. And I personally made the mistake of overloading my R1 buffer there, and that's a mistake I've been making, and I really need to fix that. So I've got these guys in a pretty good position. They've got to come up here and deal with this mage. I think there's actually a ladder behind me that they probably could use instead. So I'm kind of keeping that in the back of my mind. And so I'm just going to antagonize them for a little bit and try to get them to be more aggressive. And there I see a brief blip, and it looks like there's an invader up top, but I'm not sure who he's fighting. If there's another Phantom up there, maybe there's a fourth Phantom. There's no seed active. I suppose it's possible he's getting hit by some of the mage's magic spells, even if they're not targeting him, although that seems pretty weird if that would be happening. So there's probably another Phantom up there that he's fighting. And there I make the mistake of just kind of panic rolling away, which is easy to do when there's a lot of Phantoms because you can't see them all. Yeah, there must have been another Phantom up here. Another example of an overloaded R1 buffer. None of these guys have anywhere near enough vigor. So now I invade this guy for the third time. And at the time, I didn't realize it was actually the same crew all three times. I knew the previous clip and this clip were the same group, but I didn't realize that very first guy was also part of the same crew, where I probably would have eased off these guys a little bit. Because I don't think they were ganking. I mean, I think they were probably just trying to get through the level. And there I felt really bad because the Phantom was trying to bow and he got hit by the magic spell. This is really such a fun level to invade in. I think this is probably my favorite, the Grand Archives. And here I know the guy's blown all of his stamina, and I know he's going to try and block that hit. I see that coming from a mile away. I don't think that particular shield has a whole lot of stability to it. So this is that first guy that I was cutting all the slack to. But I don't think I realized that at this point. And even if I had, I probably still would have gone pretty hard after this guy just because he had so many Phantoms with him. Now I realize this guy's plan is probably to try and cheese me around and play Ring Around the Rosie, which frustrates me. He ends up falling in, and I end up falling after him. At the time, I thought that he had fallen in by accident, but after rewatching it, I think that he'd actually killed himself. So this invasion was interesting. I learned a lot from this. I know Saint had mentioned the verticality of this level. I think it's turned into kind of a running joke. And I had mentioned in a previous video that I myself am not a sufficiently good invader to really be mindful of things like that and use that sort of level layout to my advantage. And that'll come into play a bit here in a little while. So obviously I see the other invader, and the first thing I do in a situation like this, well, the very first thing is try to establish whether they're password summoned and make sure that they're actually going to be friendly, but then try to get an idea of what they know. and with like the L1 waggle, it makes me think that he may know where the party is. Maybe he's waited for another invader to come along. So I'm going to follow his lead and see where he goes, because he probably knows something that I don't. And sticking together in these situations is almost always the best approach. So we catch sight of the party there, and had I been by myself, I would have gone all the way around and tried to follow him from behind. I see him come over here, and I know immediately what he's thinking. So I put on my cat ring and drop down here, and now we're in an awesome frickin' position to surprise the ever-living shit out of this party as they come down. So I'm trying to figure out how I go at this guy without getting in the mage's way. And fortunately, the timing's like perfect. I wish I could take credit saying I was doing that on purpose. Unfortunately, the other invader gets completely ganked, but I'm fortunate enough to break the host's guard. And because we had busted his tiers earlier, I was able to kill him, which felt really, really good. So thanks to that other invader, because I would not have won that invasion without him. And not just because he was there to help take the heat off, but I would not have thought to use the dragon ring to go down. So this invasion, I knew this guy was back here. It's a single host. He's got kind of the noob gear and noob weapons on him. Unfortunately here he's laggy as hell. So I am not taking this guy very seriously at all. Just kind of messing around with him. And there, I'm like, okay, I appreciate that. I was actually trying to do a fist pump, not wave at him. When he immediately went to circle me. And this actually goes back to another thing that I was talking about, whether I use parries often enough. I decided to just kind of throw that one out there and see if he'd take it, and I end up getting punished for it. And that's the kind of reason I don't do that stuff very often. And here I don't heal because I know I'm going to kill this guy. I miss him with the R2, and he kills me. And I totally deserve to lose that invasion. I didn't take him or the invasion seriously, and that's what happens. So this is just kind of a fun little cherry on the ending here. My buddies and I were doing just like a little fight club, and this particular invader ran off among the mobs, and because I was the only red, everybody else was either a host or a white summon phantom, I decided to go off and chase him because the enemies obviously would not aggro on me. This is a low-level invasion. I think everybody here is like soul level 30-ish or so. I'm actually 36, so I got password summoned into the fight. But it's funny, you see the same builds just over and over and over. You either see the Dragon Slayer axe, which I'd kind of discovered on my own is really, really good buffed raw, or some sort of straight sword. Dark Hand is another popular one that you see. And you can kind of get an idea of how tryhard people are just based on what weapon they're wielding here at these lower levels. So I know this guy wants a parry, so I'm trying to figure out how I can backstab him. But I wasn't able to get one. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed the content. Thanks for checking in. Take care now.